The champagne glasses clinked like breaking glass in the opulent ballroom of the Grandview Hotel. Martha D. Ortega gripped her worn messenger bag, feeling utterly out of place among the designer gowns and diamond necklaces. She didn't belong here. But the gold-embossed invitation had promised potential funding for her community center in Riverside, the neighborhood everyone else had forgotten. "Excuse me," a voice dripped with false politeness behind her. Martha turned to find three women draped in silk and judgment. The blonde one, Diane, looked her up and down like a flawed diamond. "Are you lost? The service entrance is around back." Heat crept up Martha's neck. "I'm a guest." "A guest?" Diane's eyebrows arched. She leaned in, examining Martha's invitation with theatrical disbelief, then laughed, sharp as shattering crystal. "They're inviting anyone these days. Let me guess, you're here for the free food." "I run a community center," Martha said quietly. The foundation expressed interest. "Riverside?" Diane wrinkled her nose. "That neighborhood from the news? Gangs and graffiti?" She leaned closer, voice dropping to a cruel whisper. "Sweetheart, these events are for serious philanthropists. Not people who need the charity themselves." The other women tittered behind their hands. "Do you see anyone else here in a thrift store dress?" Diane's eyes glittered with malice. "You're embarrassing yourself. This isn't your world. Leave before anyone else notices." Martha's vision blurred. Every muscle screamed at her to walk out. She thought of her sister, who'd helped pick this dress. She thought of the kids at her center who'd overcome so much. She straightened her spine. "I was invited, and I have every right to be here." Diane's smile widened, predatory. "Oh, this is going to be fun. Let's make sure everyone knows about our special guest from the slums." As they walked away laughing, Martha's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number read, "Don't let them rattle you. You're exactly where you need to be. The truth reveals itself when the time is right." Martha stared at the message, heart pounding. Who sent this? Across the room, a man in a charcoal suit watched with dark, unreadable eyes. He pulled out his phone and typed one word, "Soon." Have you ever been judged for where you came from? What would you do, stay or leave? Drop your thoughts below. Martha moved toward the bar, trying to steady her breathing. The bartender, a young man with kind eyes, slid her a glass of water without being asked. "First time at one of these?" he asked quietly. "That obvious?" Martha managed a weak smile. Before he could respond, a microphone squealed to life. A silver-haired man in an expensive tuxedo stood on the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the annual Hartwell Foundation Gala." The crowd applauded politely. Martha recognized him from the foundation's website, Richard Hartwell himself, the billionaire philanthropist. "Tonight, we celebrate those who've made remarkable contributions to our community," Richard continued. "But first, I'd like to acknowledge some special guests." Diane appeared beside Martha, her smile venomous. "Oh, this should be good," she whispered loudly enough for others to hear. "I wonder if he'll mention the charity cases." Several heads turned toward Martha. Her cheeks burned. Richard's eyes swept the room and landed on Martha. For a brief moment, something flickered in his expression, recognition. Amusement. "I see we have some new faces tonight. How refreshing." The crowd murmured. Diane laughed, a sharp, cutting sound. "New faces from new places," she said, just loud enough to carry. Several people nearby chuckled. Martha's hands trembled. She set down her water glass before she could drop it. Then Richard did something unexpected. He smiled, genuinely smiled, and said, "Sometimes the most important work happens in the places we've forgotten to look. I'm reminded tonight that true character isn't found in what we wear, but in what we do when no one's watching." The room fell silent. Diane's smile faltered. Now, Richard continued smoothly, let's enjoy this evening. Dinner will be served shortly. As the crowd dispersed toward their assigned tables, Martha checked her seating card. Table 12. She navigated through the sea of round tables draped in white linen, finally finding hers in a corner, far from the stage, far from the important people. Perfect. She could eat quickly and leave. But when she approached table 12, her breath caught. The man in the charcoal suit, the one who'd been watching her, sat in the chair next to hers. Up close, he was younger than she thought, maybe mid-30s, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to see right through her. Ms. Ortega, he said, standing politely. I believe we're tablemates tonight. You know my name, Martha said carefully, not sitting down yet. I make it my business to know who's doing real work in this city. He extended his hand. Daniel Hartwell. Martha's eyes widened. Hartwell? As in? Richard's son, he confirmed. Please, sit. We have a lot to discuss. Martha sat slowly, her mind racing. Daniel Hartwell. She'd never seen him in any photos with his father, never heard him mentioned in any articles about the foundation. You seem surprised, Daniel said, reading her expression. I didn't know Richard Hartwell had a son. He prefers it that way. I prefer it that way. Daniel's jaw tightened slightly. We have different philosophies about philanthropy. Before Martha could ask what he meant, Diane's voice cut through the air like a knife. She'd stopped at their table, her two friends flanking her like bodyguards. Well, well. Daniel Hartwell himself. Diane's smile was predatory. I didn't expect to see you here. Slumming it at table 12. Diane, Daniel said coolly. Still spending your husband's money on jewelry that can't buy you class. The color drained from Diane's face. Her friends gasped. I saw what you did earlier, Daniel continued, his voice quiet but sharp as a blade. Bullying Ms. Ortega. Trying to humiliate her. Tell me, does it make you feel powerful? Attacking someone who's actually making a difference in people's lives? I was just, Diane stammered. You were being cruel. There's a difference between being elite and being elitist. You've confused the two. Daniel leaned back in his chair. Ms. Ortega runs a community center that's kept 43 kids off the streets in the past year alone. She's done it with almost no funding, working 3 jobs to keep it open. What have you done, Diane? Besides marry well and spend poorly? The nearby tables had gone quiet, people straining to hear. Diane's face turned crimson. How dare you? The truth is uncomfortable, isn't it? Daniel's eyes were ice. You should leave now. Before I mention to my father how you've been treating his guests. Diane fled, her friends scurrying after her. Martha sat frozen, overwhelmed. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Daniel turned to her, his expression softening. I sent you that text earlier. I've been watching you all night, waiting to see if you'd stay or run. You stayed. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. Why are you helping me? Daniel's eyes grew distant. Because 10 years ago, I was like Diane. Rich, arrogant, convinced that money meant I mattered. Then my mother died, and I discovered she'd been secretly volunteering in Riverside. She'd kept journals about the people there, the struggles they faced. Reading those journals changed everything. He paused. She wrote about a little girl who dreamed of opening a community center someday. A girl named Martha Ortega. Martha's breath stopped. Your mother, was she Elena Hartwell? Daniel nodded. You remember her. Tears pricked Martha's eyes. She taught me to read. When my parents worked double shifts, she'd come to the neighborhood library and tutor kids for free. She told me I could be anything I wanted. Her voice cracked. I didn't know she died. I'm so sorry. She believed in you, Daniel said softly. And she left something for you. Have you ever had someone believe in you when nobody else did? How did it change your life? Share your story in the comments. Before Daniel could explain further, Richard Hartwell's voice boomed through the microphone again. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our annual funding announcements. Tonight, we'll be awarding grants to 5 organizations making exceptional impacts in our community. Martha's heart sank. She'd come here hoping for funding, but after Diane's humiliation, after being seated at the back table, she knew she had no chance. Daniel squeezed her hand under the table. Wait, he whispered. Richard began announcing the recipients. A youth sports program. An arts initiative. A job training center. Each organization sent a representative to the stage, shaking Richard's hand, accepting oversized checks. And now, our final grant of the evening, Richard said. This one is special. It goes to an organization that embodies everything my late wife Elena believed in: grassroots change, personal sacrifice, and unwavering dedication to those society has forgotten. Martha's hands trembled. Could it be? However, Richard's expression darkened. It has come to my attention that one of our invited guests was treated abhorrently tonight. Mocked, belittled, and told she didn't belong here. The room erupted in whispers. People glanced around, trying to identify who he meant. Diane, who'd been hiding near the back, looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Martha D. Ortega, Richard called out. Would you please join me on stage? The room went silent. Every eye turned to Martha. She stood on shaking legs, Daniel's encouraging nod giving her strength. The walk to the stage felt like miles. Cameras flashed. People whispered behind their hands. When she reached Richard, he took both her hands in his. I owe you an apology, he said into the microphone. I invited you here tonight, knowing you'd face judgment from people who measure worth in dollars rather than impact. I should have protected you better. I don't understand, Martha whispered. Richard smiled, and suddenly, she saw Elena in his eyes. My wife spent the last 3 years of her life documenting the work being done in Riverside. She wrote about you extensively, Martha. About the little girl who read books in a broken library, who dreamed of building something better. She made me promise that when you were ready, I would help you. Tears streamed down Martha's face. But then I learned something that complicated everything, Richard continued, his voice heavy. Something Elena never told me before she died. Something I only discovered 2 weeks ago when going through her personal papers. The room held its breath. Richard pulled an envelope from his jacket. Martha, before she met me, before she became Elena Hartwell, my wife's name was Elena Ortega. She was your father's sister. She was your aunt. The room exploded in gasps and whispers. Martha's knees buckled. Daniel appeared beside her, steadying her. I didn't know, Richard said, his eyes glistening. She never told me she had family. I think she wanted to protect you from this world, from the judgment and the pressure. But she also left you something. He handed Martha the envelope. She left you half of her estate. $20 million, to be exact. With one condition, that you use it to expand your community center and create opportunities for others like you. Martha couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. $20 million. But there's more, Richard continued. Elena also established a clause that if you accepted this inheritance, you would become a voting member of the Hartwell Foundation Board. You would have equal say in where we direct our resources. The implications crashed over Martha like a wave. The people who'd mocked her, who'd called her a charity case, would now have to work with her. Answer to her. She looked out at the crowd. Diane stood frozen, her face pale as death. The other society women who'd laughed at her dress, her background, her very presence, they all stared at her with shock and dawning horror. Martha's hands shook as she opened the envelope. Inside was a letter in Elena's handwriting. My dearest Martha, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I never told you we were family. I was young and foolish when I left Riverside, desperate to escape poverty. I changed my name, buried my past, and built a new life. By the time I found you again, that little girl in the library, I was too ashamed to reveal the truth. But I watched you, Martha. I watched you grow into everything I should have been. You stayed. You fought. You built something beautiful in the place I abandoned. This money is my apology and my hope. Use it to finish what I started. And remember, you belong anywhere you choose to stand. With all my love, Aunt Elena. Martha looked up, tears streaming down her face. The entire ballroom watched in silence. I accept, she said, her voice stronger than she'd ever heard it. I accept the inheritance, and I accept the board position. The room erupted in applause, some genuine, some forced, but all loud. Richard embraced her. Welcome to the family, Martha. The real family. Daniel stepped forward, his eyes warm. I've been managing Elena's trust for the past 2 years, preparing for this moment. I'd like to continue working with you, if you'll have me. Your community center deserves someone who understands what you're building. I'd like that, Martha said softly. As the crowd swarmed around her, people who'd ignored her minutes ago now desperate to introduce themselves, Martha caught sight of Diane trying to slip out a side door. Diane, Martha called out. The woman froze, turned slowly. Martha walked toward her, the crowd parting like water. When she reached Diane, she saw fear in the other woman's eyes. I want you to know something, Martha said quietly. You were right earlier. I don't belong in your world. Your world is small, built on judgment and exclusion. She smiled. I belong in a bigger world. One where a girl from Riverside can stand in a ballroom and offer kindness to someone who showed her none. Diane's eyes widened. The community center is always looking for volunteers, Martha continued. If you ever want to understand what real wealth looks like, come visit. See what people can build when they have nothing but hope in each other. She extended her hand. Diane stared at it for a long moment. Then, slowly, she took it. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I know, Martha said. And I forgive you. If someone who hurt you asked for forgiveness, could you give it? What does true strength look like to you? Let us know below. 3 months later, Martha stood in front of the newly expanded Riverside Community Center. The old, cramped building had been transformed. New classrooms, a computer lab, a full kitchen for cooking classes, an art studio, and a library, named the Elena Ortega Memorial Library. Daniel stood beside her, reviewing the final construction reports. Over the past months, they'd worked together daily, his business expertise complementing her grassroots knowledge. Something had grown between them, respect first, then friendship, and now something deeper neither had quite named yet. The kids are going to lose their minds when they see this, Daniel said, smiling. I still can't believe it's real, Martha admitted. Believe it. You built this. Elena's money helped, but this vision? This is all you. The sound of children's laughter echoed from around the corner. Martha's original students, Jamal, Maria, Derek, and others, ran toward them, eyes wide with wonder. Ms. Ortega. Maria cried. Is this really ours? It's really ours, Martha confirmed, her heart full. Richard Hartwell arrived in his town car, stepping out with a smile that reminded Martha so much of Elena. Ready for the ribbon cutting? Behind him, another car pulled up. To Martha's surprise, Diane emerged, wearing jeans and a simple sweater, the first time Martha had seen her in anything but designer clothes. I hope I'm not intruding, Diane said nervously. I've been volunteering at the youth literacy program like you suggested. I thought maybe I could help here too. Martha smiled. We can always use another pair of hands. As the community gathered, kids from Riverside, volunteers, foundation board members, and even some of the society women who'd once mocked her, Martha took the scissors Richard offered her. "This center stands as proof that where you come from doesn't determine where you go," she said to the crowd. "It stands for every kid who's been told they don't belong, every dreamer who's been told to be realistic, every fighter who's been told to give up." Elena Ortega knew that truth. And now, her legacy lives on. She cut the ribbon, and cheers erupted. Daniel took her hand, squeezing gently. "You know, the foundation board meeting is next week. Ready to shake things up?" "More than ready," Martha said. "I've got a list of neighborhoods that need exactly what we built here." "Of course you do." Daniel laughed. "That's why Elena chose you. That's why he paused, his expression turning serious. "That's why I'm glad you stayed that night. When everyone tried to make you leave, you stood your ground." "I had help," Martha said softly. "A mysterious text from someone who believed in me." "Always," Daniel promised. "Always." As the sun set over Riverside, casting golden light over the new center, Martha thought about that night at the gala. The humiliation, the tears, the moment she'd almost walked away. She thought about Diane's cruelty and her later redemption. About Richard's revelation and Elena's secret love. About the family she'd discovered and the future she'd claimed. They'd tried to embarrass her, to make her feel small and unworthy. Instead, they'd witnessed the moment Martha D. Ortega stepped into the truth of who she'd always been, not despite where she came from, but because of it. And that made all the difference. What dreams have you given up on because someone said you didn't belong? Martha's story reminds us that our worth isn't determined by others' judgments. What's one step you can take today toward your dream, no matter who doubts you? Share your commitment below. Let's inspire each other. Thank you for watching this story. If Martha's journey touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories. Your support helps us bring these powerful narratives to life. Until next time, remember, you belong anywhere you choose to stand.